everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Brewer Spotlight. I am your host, Ed, and today on tap we have, if you could please introduce yourself, sir.
My name is Rich Larson. I am been a boss member, although lately, not recently. Been a boss member since 1992, I think. Um, been a home brewer since 1988. So that puts me at around what, 34? I can't do the math. I should have done that math earlier. 34 years, something like that.
34 years old. Yes, that's
Yep.
exactly it. And
And I am currently gone pro for the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, at a brewery in North Carolina that me and my two partners, associates, I don't like using partner nowadays, um, my two associates opened. And what can I say about it?
yeah, we're gonna get all into it. But let's start with the homebrew, and then we'll definitely. I want to hear all about Midsummer and North Carolina and how that's been the last year and a half, because you and I don't get to talk all that often now that you moved away.
No, well, I haven't really moved. I travel back and forth. I gotta come back every 3 months for medical stuff. But yeah, I spend most of my time there now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So homebrewing wise, did your home brewery have a name?
Yeah, I originally started off as Blind Dog Brewing.
Okay.
Um, I sent you a photo of my semi-original. That was the last system, the picture that I sent you.
Okay.
Before we tore it apart to make it in the pilot brewery for Midsummer. But yeah, I mean, when I started in 1988, it was the typical. You got to make all your equipment yourself,
Yeah,
and
DIY.
there was nothing to be bought. There was a couple of homebrew shops around, and all you could really get was plastic buckets and cans of malt extract with yeast taped to the top. You know, and I bought a kit. Um, and with that kit came a book of how to brew homebrew. I think it was just called Brewing Beer or something like that. And I read that book, cover to cover, and did my first batch, and it tasted all right. Um, Actually, let me back up a little bit on that. My first homebrew kit came from a um, cookbook club. Some of you folks out there that are in the same age bracket as I am might remember the RCA Music Club. This is a similar thing, except it was with cookbooks. And in the monthly catalog that came with the cookbook club was a little small homebrewing kit. It did 1 gallon of homebrew, and you bought it. It came with one bucket, four plastic pint cups or pint bottles, a racking cane, a hose clamp, a piece of hose, and a package of pre-hopped malt extract, and a package of yeast, and instructions, and a book that came with it, which was that book I was talking about.
What a bargain.
I brewed that up, followed the instructions. It was okay. It was supposed to be an ale, I guess. I don't know. It wound up tasting like a Hefeweizen, probably because the yeast never settled all the way out. But it was encouraging enough to continue. And in that book, it said, check your yellow pages for local homebrew shops. This was 1988. The local homebrew shop was on the north side of Chicago, and I'm in the far south suburbs. So I went up there. Of course, I read this book, so now I'm an expert on homebrewing, of course.
Of course.
The book was about that thick. And it said if you want, a more bitter or more hoppy beer, which just tasted like Hefeweizen, really wasn't that excited, there's a thing called alpha acid that you had to, the higher the alpha acid, obviously, the more bitter the beer could be. So I went up to the homebrew shop and the guy is helping me out, and I said, well, let me get these cluster hops as opposed to the Goldings that this recipe called for. So I bought those and I brought them back and brewed a beer, and it tasted like a rubber hose. So not too discouraged. So well, I'm going to do this again, and went back to the shop, picked up Charlie Papazian's uh, book, read that, said, okay, I see what I'm doing wrong here. I mean, because different hops have different characteristics, which the first book didn't really cover. And kind of went along with that, picked up a can of malt extract. And of course, it was either use the yeast that was taped to the top. I think it was like a Munton's extract, excuse me. Or I could buy Red Star yeast, which Red Star makes bread yeast, as you know. And I brought that home and brewed that up, and it was okay, but it was enough to keep me going on it. And then the Country Food and Liquor opened up their homebrew shop. I don't even think it was called U-Brew yet. It was just a homebrew shop attached to the liquor store. And I walked in there, and it was like I basically just shook Dean's hand and said, "Thank you for being here." And with that, I started experimenting a little bit more. I only think I did about 3 or 4 extract brews, and then after reading through, it's like, well, this looks easy enough to do all grain. And at about the same time, the all grain stuff came out, or I went to all grain. Liquid yeasts came out. Y yeast started producing their little. I think they were smack packs when they first started. So I bought all the grain I needed um, for the recipe, and then a package of Y yeast. Brought it home, brewed it up, and then it went through its fermentation. I put it in bottles, and then I went to England for the first time, and that was 1991, I think it was. And when I got back from England, I popped a bottle because it had conditioned while I was gone, and poured it, and it was probably the best beer that I had made at that. Well, it was the best beer that I had made at that point. So that was it. I mean, it's like, okay, I can do this, you know. And from then on in, it's just like a roller coaster.
Yeah, it's definitely a love of the game thing. You get your mitts on that first batch, and you either are drawn to it or you kind of walk away. I've heard it quite a few times at this point.
Right. Yeah. It's one of those things. I like to cook, so it's if it doesn't turn out right the first time, it's like go back and look at it and see what I did wrong. And try to improve on it. I'm not one to back away from something if it doesn't work the first time. So.
Oh, that's good, and we appreciate that for sure. I know I've had a couple of your beers even prior to this, and glad I did.
Brought a few to the picnic.
Yeah. So that first beer, you said it was just some type of ale. You don't even know what kind of ale you were brewing?
I have no idea. It was in the. I've still got the bucket. I use it to carry little gadgets in.
All right.
I got it marked on the side 1/2 gallon, 1 gallon. So
I like it. I like it. Nobody throws away anything anymore. I love it.
Well, and that's another thing too. I was like, if it works, I don't get rid of it. If it's still functional, if I can find a use for it, I'll use it.
Yep. So the not clear on what the beer was style wise. Do you tend to brew more to style? Like, is there a particular style that you really like to brew, or things that you're drawn to, and things that you're like, I'm never going to make that?
Yeah, no, well, yeah, I do like to stick to styles just because, I've got a guideline to follow. I will push the envelope once in a while, some older boss members might remember I made a elderberry ale one time, which was okay, but you know, and then but I will stick to style mainly, like I say, because it's easier to follow the guidelines. There's more information out there on how to deal with it. Um, but my favorite styles really are English ales, porters. I don't do porters too often, but bitters, special bitters, extra special bitters. In fact, you've got a special bitter there that I brewed. Um, it's a very simple recipe. It's really just 2 row pale ale, malt, 60L crystal, and Brewer's Gold for bittering, and Fuggle and Kent Golding for finishing.
Now that you say that, now I got to pour it. I got to get on it.
Yeah.
Get rolling. So this is you called it a special bitter?
Special bitter, right. It's a 1040 gravity, 1044, somewhere in there.
Okay. And I don't
something for midsummer to to be drinkable.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk more about midsummer, we'll cover that up. But you might notice a little strawberry ester in there.
Yeah, it's fruity. Like there's like a berry ester there. Is that fruity, the yeast, or is that?
I fermented around 69 degrees or whatever, and it's really modeled after some of the bitters that I've had in England. Just a table beer, let's call it that. Nice. The second time I went to England was my son went with, and we went into a pub, and had his first beer engine hand pulled beer over there, and he took a drink out of it and just rolled his eyes back in his head and goes, "Why don't we have this at home?" I said, "Now you understand,
Mm-hmm.
And so I came back and I made this, and I took him a sample of this, and he took a drink out of that and goes, "You nailed it. That's exactly what we had over there." So it's a session. Nice. It's a session beer. It's not something to be to explode in your face. It's something to sit down and drink and enjoy with friends.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, about 4.5%, somewhere.
Yeah, about 4.5%.
Not in your face hoppy, and it's got an interesting, like you said, that fruity yeast character to it almost.
Mm-hmm.
There's enough bitterness there to support that, and enough malt backbone to support that bitterness. So.
And that's fermented with White Labs WLP5, which is their British ale yeast. Very flocculent. I sent you a video of the fermenter trying to disgorge the yeast.
It's a beautiful looking beer. Yeah, and then it'll be in the intro outro.
Right.
Use photos. So
it kind of came out like wet putty.
Yeah, that's neat, and it's very good. That's very nice. I could definitely see, and I mean it's unfortunately it's midwinter here as opposed to midsummer.
Right.
And but I mean during the summer, oh man, I could totally crush a couple of these easy.
And that would be an example of something I would have brought to the boss picnic, because you need a break once in a while from hoppy beers. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, everything in America is very, very extreme. Our American stouts, American porters, American IPA. It's boom. But it gives your palate a rest, and it's just something to enjoy. This is nice, Rich. Thank you for sharing. So British styles, you kind of dig these, and like I said, I'm no judge, but you're nailing this in my opinion. What are there styles that you're not really a fan of? Anything that you're not really interested in brewing?
I'm not a real big fan of smoky beers or spiced beers.
Is there when you're brewing, is there a particular favorite tool or piece of gear in either the home brewing world or in the professional brewing world that you just can't do without at this point?
Yeah, Beer Tools Pro. It's a very, very good program. I know a couple other people that use it. It translates very well to scale up batches. Uh, I'll do a pilot batch recipe on it, to a 5-gallon, and then with a simple click of a button, tell it okay, now I want to make 110 gallons of this, and it scales up everything. So I'm lucky at this point. The geometry of my of the midsummer system and the size. I don't have to worry too much about hop utilization. I'm still trying to nail down my efficiency. When I first started it on that system, it was I was going by the homebrewing systems efficiency, and when I scaled up, I completely missed the gravity.
Too high or too low?
Too low. Yeah. And problem with too low is you got to boil a lot longer, or just go with it. In fact, one of our beers was a too low mistake that we made a little change to, and that one's called Ruby Skies. It was a wit beer, but we hit the gravity too low, so I added hibiscus. Some boss members might remember at the picnic I did a DIY hibiscus.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I was like, didn't you make one of those once? I could have sworn I had that.
Yeah, it's similar, but everybody's saying, oh, you gotta make a whole batch of it with all the hibiscus in it. It's like, I didn't want to really commit it to it, all of that, but and because this wit was a little bit low gravity, it was actually within style of wit, but it wasn't what we were shooting for. Adding the hibiscus to it just made it a beautiful pink color, and add a little tartness to it. So we sell it as a tart, not a sour.
Okay.
And it's very refreshing. People like it. So.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Again, warmer months, warmer climate. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Is there any advice? I mean, you've been doing this, like you said, a long time. You said 88. Any advice for brewers starting out or getting into the hobby? What you tell them to do?
Hook up with a seasoned brewer. Join a club. Share your ideas. Get ideas from everybody else. I've always said the homebrewing community is absolutely amazing. It's one of the weirdest hobbies where everybody wants to help everybody else, and there's no pissing contests usually. Everybody wants to have you achieve your best quality beers because they get to drink it then later too, when you share it. So, yeah, hook up with somebody and that is already brewing and pick their brains, because the mistakes they've made, they could save you some problems.
100%. Some of the best stories I've heard come from brewers that made a mistake and helped avoid telling those stories helped avoid a pitfall.
Right.
Yeah, definitely good. I am out of beer.
Uh-oh.
And we are out of time.
Well, I give you a couple more there you could do.
Yes. And
I'd like to see your reaction to the Sunring hazy.
And we're gonna hit that as soon as I'm off this call. So but we're gonna end the show here, and then we're gonna keep going. So This has been your Brewer Spotlight, everyone. Cheers to all, and happy brewing.
Oh, and by the way, any boss members, come on down. First beer's on me.
Can't go wrong with that. That screams to the Carolina.
Everybody get on the bus. Let's have a boss meeting there. It's only 14 hours away.
Hey, that sounds weekend getaway right there. I love it. Cheers, all. Be good out there.